Hello everyone, welcome to a new video for a render link and Aave price prediction based on Elliott wave analysis. We're gonna start with render on the daily chart here where we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 impulse towards the upside, finished wave A or wave 1. We have an ABC for a wave 2 and continuation impulsively toward the upside for a wave 3. Meaning right now we are in several bullish scenarios toward the upside, starting with this wave A, B, and a C as a wave A finished. You're looking at a finished corrective wave taking the blue zone as expected before, and we're looking here at an impulse 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 continuation toward the upside as an A, B, and a C, of course, for higher prices. Another scenario is, of course, a leading diagonal in impulses as a 1, 2, 3, 4, and hitting perfectly the fib level for wave 4 in a leading diagonal, and then continuation for wave 5 impulsively 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to finish this leading diagonal toward the upside. Final scenario is a double 1, 2, big wave 1, 2, and then another wave 1, 2 hitting the minimum requirement 0.38 and looking for a massive wave 3 impulsive toward the upside, of course, for render. The bearish scenario as a short-term bearish is unfinished corrective wave here where you might have 3 waves for a wave A, 3 waves for a wave B, and 1, 2, 3 and a wave 4 as an expanding flat ABC and looking for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 toward the downside to finish a wave 5. However, this possibility is a little bit low possibility, and that because we have an impulse already finished there. However, the wave 2 here took the almost 886, which is not really nice to see it, of course, for a wave 3 in an impulse taking the wave 2, the 886 for a wave 1, which of course reduce a little bit the probability. Maybe of course opening still the possibility for a little bit lower inside this blue box again and then moving toward the upside. A bigger bearish scenario can be of course a bigger A, B, and a C, meaning this can be of course a wave C unfolding toward the upside as a 3 waves A, B, and a C. Since of course we took the 886, the wave C is normal to take the 886 and therefore finishing wave B and of course continuation later for a wave C toward the downside. However, still of course a far possibility since we have a 3 bullish scenarios against of course only one, and this of course increases the probability for the bullish rather than the bearish. If we move inside this render chart towards the 2 hours here, we are looking on the 2 hours for an impulse toward the upside 1, 2, 3, 4, and a 5. We have a W, X, and a Y. As we mentioned, it took the 886, meaning possibility is a little bit less for a massive wave 3. It increases also the possibility for a wave C, but it will of course turn it into something like bullish slash bearish later on, where we might see of course a move toward the downside again. However, in this scenario here, in this box where we are looking at a potential 1, 2, 3, 4, and a 5, an impulse finished wave 1. In case we are in a wave 1 here, we're looking for a wave 2. As you can see, based on the time required for wave 2, we did not reach yet the FIB time, which is the minimum 0.38. And you can see something like an impulse toward the downside anyway, and it can be even W, X, and a Y if in case of course this is a zigzag. But in a overall here, this is only one leg corrective, and it might mean of course after this 3 waves toward the downside, you might get of course 3 waves up and then a wave C again for a wave 2 to hit perfectly this blue box and then continuation toward the downside. If we dive a little bit in the micro as well here, we can see that there is a potential for an impulse here unfolding after having a 1, 2, 3, 4, and a 5, wave A, wave B, A, B, C, and then having another 1, 2, 3, 4, and a 5. So probably you might have finished a wave 2, but very low possibility based on the time, which it might of course require still of course much more lower prices later on. But before having lower prices, you might be of course in an ABC here, where you might have of course 1, 2, 3, 4, and a 5. For an impulse, it might be of course a wave A, and then having later on a wave B, and then wave C to finish of course as this 3 waves corrective, and then of course moving again down for a wave C in an overall to finish of course as this correction. This correction of course as a wave 2 still need at least to hit the FIB time and probably to have much more remarkable, I would say, three waves structure before moving toward the upside. Another possible scenario here, if we continue to move for higher prices and we take the all-time high, of course there are two possible scenarios as well, where you might be here in a zigzag 1, 2, 3, 4, and a 5, a leading diagonal for a wave 1. In this case scenario, you have of course a zigzag, or it can be even an impulse 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 here, and another diagonal for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and potentially you would like to see after this correction a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for a wave 5 again to finish a wave 1. So the possibilities here are of course still a little bit uncertain, but of course we have a possibility even for an A, a B, and a C as well, where you might have of course a 3 corrective wave as an expanding flat wave 2. So this is also possible in case we are in a 1 A, B, C wave 2 and then continuation toward the upside. So in both case scenarios right now, we're looking for higher, and definitely we're gonna see at least 3 waves toward the upside. It can reach the high. It can reach the high if we see 3 waves. That means of course it is a wave B in an A, B, and a C expanding flat for a wave 2. In case we see an impulse here, continuation 1, 2, 3, 4, and a 5, therefore we have to consider of course a leading diagonal finish over there. And we start to see of course a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 towards the upside. This is regarding render. Let's move for a link to see what link is doing today. So for link on the 2 hours chart as well, we are looking at this potential impulse toward the upside. I would say it looks also impulsive, and but based on the time for wave 2 and the fib level of course hit by the way, but the time is not hit yet. Oh, even the wave 2 here did not took yet the 0.38 on a link, and therefore this reinforce of course the scenario that unfinished wave 2 still of course required. As you can see guys, the minimum requirement fib level and fib time are not hit, and you might still be in a corrective wave. After 3 waves down, you might have 3 waves up, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 toward the downside to finish a wave 2 here, and of course 1, 2, 3, 4, and a 5 towards the upside. And in this case scenario, I would say link is still looking of course for some higher prices to finish this corrective wave A, B, and a C to finish a wave 2 of course. Now in a bigger view on the daily for a link, we are a little bit also in several scenarios. So on the bigger overview, let's go for days to see all the charts. So you have an impulse toward the upside, which means you have finished a wave 1 or a wave A. After both case scenario, you're looking at a very long corrective wave, which it might be W, X, Y, X, and a Z here, finishing wave B or a wave 2 and starting an impulse toward the upside for a wave 1. Now this impulse, it can be of course 2 things. It can be of course a wave 1 finished wave 2, and here of course you cannot really count an impulse. As you can see, you have just 1, 2, 3. The wave 4 dived very deep. Therefore I'm watching here 2 scenarios, whether we are in a diagonal toward the upside for the link here, where you are looking 1, 2, 3, 4, and a 5, or you are in a potential 1 and A, B, C for a wave 2. The wave 2 still need one more low of course to take this low, preferably of course to take this low and having like 1, 2, 3, 4, and a 5. So basically this is looking like an impulse 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 here. Potential one more low for link can be possible guys in an expanding flat wave 2, unless final scenario is an A, B, C, D, and an E triangle and moving toward the upside for a wave C, because only of course a wave B is allowed to be a triangle here. This wave B of course that it might finish as triangle. So for this scenario, I would say in case you are an A, B, and a C, D, and an E, you still even need one more impulse toward the downside. In case that this is a finished impulse here, A, B, and a C is required of course, and therefore you can say okay, we can seek for a wave D and an E and then continuation toward the upside. So one of those possibilities might unfold, whether we are in a diagonal toward the upside, whether we are in a triangle, or we are in a 1, 2 as an ABC of course, preferably to take the low. higher probability here is still a little bit to take the low before moving toward the upside. However, on the lower time frame, as we saw that we have an impulse potentially toward the upside here, but it is currently not really finished yet, of course, for a wave 2. Maybe this can even transform to WXNY, guys. So careful with it, WXNY. And I'm gonna explain why, because of course in this wave 5 that is an issue, guys. So in this wave Y that is an issue. If you are counting 1 2 3 4 5, the wave 5 is longer than wave 3, and this is not a diagonal, so it might be something like 3 waves finished here, or it might be of course somehow like this, a structure and then finishing 3 structure for the X, finishing a Y, somehow like that. And that means you might be here in something even lower, might be unfolding toward the downside. And of course, as we saw on the daily, it might unfold one of the possibilities, triangle or a wave 2 deeper to take this low. We're gonna see, of course, what's gonna happen later on, but probability still, of course, for Link to seek for lower sooner or later. Okay, that is regarding Link. Let's check on Aave. So for Aave on the 2 hours chart or 1 hour chart here, we are looking almost at the same scenarios that we saw before. Now in Aave, we can also call potentially even diagonal here, can be possible. Before calling just a 1 2, where you might have here a 1 2 3 4 and a 5. Now in Aave, the wave 5 looks fine, impulsive, very of course clear, and it looks like a finished wave 1, I would say here, like 1. You're still looking for a wave 2 3 4 5 toward the upside. The wave 2 is not yet finished. As you can see, we did not reach the 0.38 again, not even the fifth time as well required for this wave 2. We have finished kind of an impulse here, by the way. It looks like a clear impulse or an ABC, it can be, but one leg toward the downside. And that means, of course, everything going on here is corrective. We're looking for a wave C toward the downside to finish a wave 2, and therefore continuation for higher prices for a wave 3, potentially after finishing this wave 1 2. Now another possible scenario is that this wave B, of course, can go even to the high, getting 3 waves up and then moving impulsively toward the downside as an expanding flat. Also, it can be a possible scenario where you might have an impulse 1 2 3 4 5, correction 1 2 3 4 5, correction, and then 1 2 3 4 5, and this means of course a diagonal wave 1 finishing over there. Again, to repeat the possibilities, so whether we have a diagonal 1 2 3 4 5, or we have an A, B, and a C expanding flat, or it can be even normal flat without taking the high, or it can be of course a wave 1 finished already here, 1, and you're seeking for this wave 2, of course. And in this case, the scenario might unfold whether an expanding flat or a normal flat for a wave 2. In a bigger view for Aave, of course, we are very bullish as well, and that because the Aave chart is very impulsive from the beginning. We can see that we have a huge impulse 1 2 3 4 5 toward the upside, finishing wave A or wave 1. You have a correction W, X, and a Y, which is deep enough to unfold something impulsive. However, you see here a 1 2, potentially another 1 2, and currently you might be in the second or third 1 2, which it might be the wave 3 after double 1 2s here for Aave, meaning whether you are in a wave 1 2 and then 3 4 5 toward the upside, or you are in an A, B, and a C, of course, for higher prices. Based on the fib level, where this correction did not even touch the 0.38 on the logarithmic chart, but of course on the linear chart it is of course horrible to say, to compare it, but on the logarithmic chart we did not reach the 0.38. Therefore, higher possibility here goes for a wave C, because this correction might be very shallow in regarding, of course, this 1 2, and that turns it, of course, in higher possibility of A, B, and a C towards the upside. Those are the updates for a render, Link, and Aave from the daily to the 1 hour chart. Thank you for watching. Thank you for your likes and comments, and see you in the next one. Bye bye.